Hey folks, going to be kind of doing a little quick rundown of Bloodstones, how a turn goes, what your actions are, that type of thing. Not too terribly in depth, but just sort of more of like an overview. Um, Probably going to start a campaign of this at some point in the near future, just because it seems like it's a lot of fun. But we'll do a quick overview here of so we got the map. 6 maps come in the game. These are cloth maps. Very vibrant. Really impressed with the production quality of the game. But you will have a victory point marker that goes around the outside of the track or outside of the map. In the top right, you will have the regroup track. And this essentially tells you or allows you to track how many times each player has regrouped. Depending on the player count, after every player has regrouped a certain number of times, the end game will be triggered, and you'll essentially, for the most part, be able to finish battles, and then you can count victory points. The number below it just indicates the number of the map, so this is the number 4 map, if you're able to see that or not. In the bottom right hand corner of the map will be a range of a player, so a player count. So this map says 1 to 6, so it is suitable for 1 to 6 players. Some of the maps are smaller and only suitable for smaller player counts. So there's that. Looking at the map, just a general quick sort of overview. You are going to have rivers. These just act as borders. So just like there's a black line here, but separating these two areas, same difference. You'll be able to cross over those rivers. The lakes are a space, and some units can move into them. Ships can be in them as well. You have the plain green spaces, which are just plains. You have the spaces with forests in them, which are forests. You have the hills that have like sort of a pinkish, purplish terrain coloring to them. Those are hills. You have the grayish, whitish mountains, which are impassable by most units. You have the deserts, which are the brown, sandy color. And we talked about the sea. These types of terrain matter for various things, which we will get to here in just a bit. So, sort of to start the game or the setup, essentially, what you're going to do is there are 2 of these combat bags. They have that crossword symbols. There's two of them with different colored tiles, and there is a number of tiles in them. Basically, starting with 1 player at random, they will reach into the bag of tiles and they will draw tiles out and count the number of pips on them. So for this one, there are 4, 5, 6 pips. So I essentially rolled a 6. Then those tiles go back into the bag. Next player draws 2 tiles at random. Whoever has the highest number of pips becomes the start player. Everybody will then, or in turn order, starting with the first player, you will choose your faction. So you'll get to look through all the faction sheets, decide which faction you're going to be, and you do that turn by turn or player by player until everybody has chosen a faction. Then in reverse turn order, you are going to choose where you start on the map. So you'll be able to put your citadel out, along with a handful of units, as long as you can afford to pay their cost. They have to go in to your citadel if they're land units, or adjacent in a adjacent sea space if they are a sea unit, a ship. So that actually gets done in reverse turn order, so the last player gets to place that on the map first, and then play will start with the first player. Let's go over what the tiles look like. So let me switch over here. All right, so I've got a couple tiles set up here from the Dragon faction. For every tile, there are going to be basically 3 bits of information on the tile. In the center of the tile, it will tell you what type of unit it is. So, for instance, we have a defensive unit up here. They have a shield. You have a swordsman here, has 2 swords. You'll have, I forget what those are called. Skirmishers, maybe. Let me find the dragon faction here, and oh, the dragon riders are up there. Skirmishers, sorry. Skirmishers right there. These are the cavalry units, and then you'll notice this unit has no, or this tile has no unit in it. It's blank. So you really only care about what the unit type is if it's out on the map. You're going to have a hand of these tiles. You're going to have a hand of 6 tiles to start your turn with, and you're going to use them to either put them out on the board, to pay for things, etc. The second bit of information is a cost, and that's over on the left hand side. So you'll see to put a knight out on the board, it has a cost of 2. So a cost of what? The cost is you will have to discard this number of tiles from your hand. So if I wanted to put these knights out on the board, I would have to discard 2 of these other tiles from my hand, and then I would place them out on the board. They can be placed in a citadel or a village that I have out on the board. Or if it's a C unit, it would go into an adjacent C space next to one of my villages or my citadel. The third piece of information that is on these tiles is on the right side, and this is their sort of their spend value, their number of pips. So if you were to spend this tile for its number of pips, it would give you 3 pips. And you're going to be spending these tiles to do a number of different things. So when you spend the tile, you'll use its far right value as the value of the tile. The other information you don't care about. So let's switch back over here to the map. Basically, on your turn, not on your turn, the phases of the game, essentially, I guess is what I should get to first. There's really 5 phases, and you won't do one of them if the necromancers are not in the game. So phase 1 is capture villages. Capture villages is where you may have a unit out on the board, and let's see, let me get a village out here from an opposing player. So let's say we have in our dragon riders here, there's a village, Corsair village here, and we have our not dragon riders, our well, that's the name of our faction. We have our those guys are called shield. We have our shield unit out here. We can capture that village. Now there is a cost associated with that. First being that you can only spend 1 tile to capture a village. So if I were to spend the knight that we were just talking about, remember it had 3 pips on the right. So I could spend that, I discard it from my hand, and I've got 3 pips to spend. So what does it cost to capture a village? Well, it all depends what terrain that village is in. If it's in the plains, it costs 1 pip. Or if it's in the forest, so if this was over here in the forest, it would cost 1 pip. So if I spent that knight, I would have 2 pips left over that I could use to potentially capture another village if I had it out on the board, if I had another of my my units in an empty hex with a village, or not hex, but area with a village. If the village is in a hill area, so if it's in one of these pink areas, so if we're up here, It costs 2 pips to capture that. There will never be a village in a sand area. There will never be a village in a mountain area. There will only ever be in the plains, in the forests, or in the hills. So since it costs so much to capture in the hills, you'll probably want to build villages in hills. When you capture a village, you will just remove it from the board and you'll put it in your play area, and it'll score you points at the end of the game. These have to be visible for all players at all times. The key thing to remember about this phase, the capture village phase, is you can only spend one of your tiles for the pips to capture villages out on the board. Then phase 2 comes, and this is the phase that you may not have to go through if the necromancers are not playing, but if they are, this is where they will move their undead. They do not have to spend a tile to move these units. They all just get to move 2 spaces. I think there's only 4 undead tiles that they have access to, so at most they're only moving 4 units around. But they can essentially, they ignore terrain. They can move through water. They can't end their movement in water. Or rather, they can move by sea normally, not abnormally, I guess. They cannot move into a sea area on their own. They can move through mountains, though. Normal units cannot move through mountains. There are some unique units that can move through mountains. They cannot. Let's see. Can they remain in mountains? I suppose they can. Yeah. They can remain in mountains. They can also remain in deserts. Normally, units at the end of the round, if there's any units that cannot survive by themselves in a desert, they are eliminated from the map and they go back to their players. But undead is one of the unit types that can remain in a desert from round to round. After the necromancer goes through that phase, we go to the main actions phase, where in turn order, well, not in turn, you're already doing this in turn order, essentially. You will spend tiles from your hand to build units, move units, and battle. So what you're going to do, so we'll go through each one of those. Build units, we sort of already discussed when I went over how the information that are on the tiles. You will discard a number of tiles from your hand equal to the cost of a unit you want to place, and then you will place that unit out on the map in one of your villages or citadel areas. If it's a sea unit, it can go in an adjacent sea area next to one of those, your village or citadel. Some units have no cost, so they can be just placed out for free. All this information is put face up for other players to see, so you don't place tiles out on the map face down or anything like that. They will be hidden when they're in your hand, so your opponents do not know what tiles you have in your hand. But once they go out on the board, they are face up for everybody to see. You can have any number of units in an area as you like. You can build into, so if an enemy has moved, so for instance here, if it was the blue player's turn, they could build units into that. You can build units into a area where there are enemy units, as long as it's in one of your villages. You would want to do that to try to prevent an opponent from capturing your village. So that is building a unit. The next one is moving units. So again, you will spend a tile from your hand. So if we spend the knights again, that gives us 3 pips over on the right. That is 3 movement points. So we can pick units and move them, spend those 3 movements among our units out on the board. To move into a plains area, it costs 1 movement, or 1 pip. To move into a forest area, it costs 2. To move into the hills, it costs 3. We cannot move into the mountains at all, at least normally. And if you have a special unit that can do that, it will tell you on your faction's reference sheet. You can move into a desert for 1 pip or 1 point, and same with the sea spaces. You can move your sea ships around by one space. You cannot leave an area if there are enemy units in it. Buildings obviously cannot move. Villages, so if there's an enemy village out there, you can move through that. It does not stop your movement, but if you move into a area with other enemy units, your movement immediately stops for that unit. Passage by ship. So the way this works is sort of similar to, I believe it is Mare Nostrum, where you sort of build a chain. So if I were to have a ship in this area and a ship in this area, I could move a unit from here up to here in 1 move. It would take, I have to still pay the cost of whatever area I'm going into, which would be 1 for this plains area up here. But I could have a unit down here in the forest, and as long as I had a ship here and here, I sort of chain that movement up here. It cost me 1 movement to move all the way up here. So that's how the ships work at sea. You can also battle at sea with excuse me, ship versus ship, but they're mainly used for movement. There are leaders who can take a unit with them when they move. So just keep that in mind. If you're one of the factions that has a leader, they basically can take a unit with them when they move. So you can move 2 units for the price of 1, essentially. And then the dragons, for the dragon riders, it costs them only 1 pip to move into any area. They can also move into the sea and mountain areas and stay there. But they still cannot move into or out of a space with enemy units. So that's movement, and then there's battle. So on your turn, you will have to initiate battles until there are no battles left that involve your units. So if you just keep in mind that as you're moving your units around or placing your units out on the board, if they are in the same area as an opponent's units, there will be a battle until there are only one faction's units in that area. The way this works is you, as the active player, determine the order in which you want to resolve these battles. So you will pick an area where you want to resolve a battle. So let's say there's no village there. Let me get another unit out there. Let's see here. All right, let's say that we've got that. So we've got 2 units in here. One has a value of 2, the other one has a value of 3 in pips. Not that it really matters. Now, there's going to be a battle here. The first thing you do on a battle phase is the defender. So if I am the Dragon Riders and I'm initiating the attack, the defender, which will be the blue player, the Corsairs in this scenario, may choose to withdraw. So they can withdraw all their troops. If they have a citadel or a castle built in this area, they cannot retreat or withdraw. If they choose to withdraw, they can withdraw to any empty space or a space that contains one of their villages or citadels. Or maybe castles. Let me look. Can you withdraw to castles? Yeah, units or village. Yeah, an empty space or a space that contains your units. You cannot retreat into a space. Actually, no, you can. You can retreat into a space that would contain pieces that belong to another player, as long as it also contains pieces that belong to you. So you can sort of chain battles together, essentially, I guess, if you wanted to retreat. So if there was another battle that was going to happen here, and I didn't care about this area, I could retreat into this area. You can only retreat into an area once. So if I had a third battle going on here, and I was going to try to consolidate all my forces into this one, I can't do that. I can only retreat from one of these two into that area. So that would be the defender. So they choose to withdraw if they decide to do so or not. This is the only time that they have this choice. If you go multiple rounds in a battle, you keep tying in combat, and you have to initiate another battle, you do not get to decide whether you want to withdraw in the future. You only decide right now before anything has been done with the battle. Then the attacker and defender both draw battle tiles. So you'll go to your bags, your battle bags, and you will draw a number of tiles. If you have more units in the battle than your opponent, you draw 4, and your opponent draws 3. If you have an equal number, then you both draw 3. So you'll draw 3 at random out of the bag, and you're going to add them up. So let's say that I drew these. So I have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I have a battle strength of 10. My opponent drew a number of tiles that we don't know what the value is of yet. So you will do this simultaneously. You'll say we're equal, right? So we each have the same number of units in the battle. So we would each draw 3 tiles. Those are my 3 tiles. I had a 5 tile, a 2 tile, and a 3 tile. Next, in this order, so first the attacker and then the defender, you may decide to replace one and only one battle tile with a tile from your hand. So remember, I had that 2 tile. I may want to spend this 5 tile here, which is only good to spend for pips, to help me out in this battle. So I might get rid of the 2 tile and put in the 5 tile. So I'll do that, and the 2 tile goes away. And now I have a value of 13 instead of 10. Then the defender decides if they want to do that. This is all, of course, going to be face down, or this is not open information as you're pulling these tiles. You're not doing this nobody knows your final battle strength until the last step of the battle. Essentially, you reveal the tiles. So they will know that you replaced a tile with one of your tiles, but they won't know what the value of it is. Then the defender gets to decide if they want to do the same thing. If they do not, or if they do, either way, the next step is you reveal the tiles. So you'll reveal all your tiles, you'll flip them over, or however you have them hidden, you'll unhide them. So then you will add any bonuses that your units have in the battle. And that's where we would flip back over to our reference sheet here. And I have a shield in the battle. So my shield... Where'd my pencil go? There it is up here, and it says +1 when defending, and it wins ties when defending. So I'm not defending, I'm attacking. So this battle bonus does not happen. So I'm left with 13. They have one of their skirmishers in here, which I don't have their sheet. Oh wait, here it is. It says, it's the same thing. It says +1 in forests. We are actually not battling in a forest, we're battling in a hill, so their bonus for their skirmisher does not take effect either. So whatever their reveal tile total pips are versus what I have would determine the winner. So obviously, highest number wins. Any tiles that you use to replace the battle tiles get discarded afterwards. The battle tiles, the gray tiles, will go back into their respective bags. Like we just saw, if there's a tie, so if we would have tied, we both would have had 13. I would have. Let's see. The defender. So I was not the defender, but if the defender would have had a shield, they would automatically win. Otherwise, those tiles get discarded and you go through another round of combat. The defender does not get to choose to withdraw, but you draw, a number of battle tiles from the bags again. Choose whether you want to replace a single tile from your hand, and then calculate your values. The player who wins gets victory points equal to the number of units in the opposing forces before any are eliminated. So if either side would win here, we would either one of us would score 1 victory point. Some factions get extra victory points for various things, so just keep that in mind. The losing side must eliminate 1 unit of their choice. So if we had multiple units, we would pick one of the units that would go away. The rest of the units have to retreat, and they have to retreat into a legal space, which is an empty space or a space containing our units. Any units that cannot retreat, because there's no spaces for them to retreat to, are eliminated from the game. It is possible this way that you can lose your citadel, which is your capital, because it does act like a unit. Villages do not act as units, but your citadel does act as a unit. And it can be eliminated, at which point it goes to the opponent that eliminated it, and they will score bonus points at the end of the game. You technically cannot be eliminated from the game. You can pop back up on your turn. You can place a village out in another area. But you will be in a disadvantage because you've lost your citadel. After that, so that's the third action, the battle action, and you can basically take any number of those actions in any order you want. That is, what was it called? Deploy. I forget what the first one was called. There's battle, there's move, and build, I think, was the other one. I would have called it, build unit, move unit, or battle. You can take, as long as you can afford to pay the cost for those things, you can continue to do so until you run out of tiles in your hand, basically. But, just think you may want to keep a tile or two in your hand left behind for future battles that are not on your turn, because you do not draw back up yet. Or wait, maybe you do. Maybe you do. You do. Never mind. You'll probably want to spend all your tiles on your turn if you can afford it. Unless there's a tile you want to hang on to for a specific reason. So after you have exhausted your actions, your main actions, you will be able to construct villages. And again, this is where you can spend tile. Only 1 tile, just like the capture village. You can only spend 1 tile to build a village, and it will generate a number of pips, and you will spend those pips as costs to build a village. You can to construct a village, the costs in a plains is 1 pip, in a forest is 1 pip, and in the hills are 2 pips, just as it is to capture them. You can place your villages adjacent to existing villages, adjacent to your citadel, or adjacent to a chain of your units that connects either your villages or to your citadels. So, as long as you can trace a path back to a village or a citadel, you can build a village in that area. two villages can exist on the same plane space. So you can build multiple villages in a plane. Then you will draw tiles. You'll check desert areas. If you have a unit in a desert area that cannot survive in the desert area, it is eliminated. Then you refill your hand. You reach into your bag, and you draw back up to 6 tiles. If you cannot draw back up to 6 because your bag is empty, excuse me, you will take a regroup action, which you will increase your number on the regroup track in the top right. You'll slide it over 1 to indicate you're taking a regroup action. You will take all of your discarded tiles that you've kept into a separate pile. You will put them back into your bag and mix them up. And then you will finish drawing back up until you get to your 6 tiles. Then each village you have on the map will be worth 1 victory point, and you will score that now. And then play will continue on to the next player in clockwise order. Rinse and repeat. You continue doing that until each player has, if you're playing with more than 2 players, until each player has regrouped at least 2 times. You will score your villages for those first 2 times, but any subsequent regroups, so if you regroup a 3rd or a 4th time, you will not score villages. You will just take your tiles, put them back into your bag, and then draw back up to 6. So each player really only has 2 village scoring rounds. After each player has done at least 2 regroups, the end of the game will be triggered. You will resolve all remaining battles in player order, starting with the player to the left of the one who triggered the end game. The active player resolves any battles they are involved in and then draws their hand back to its normal size. Then all players can capture all enemy villages in areas where they have 1 or more units. You don't have to spend tiles and pips to do this. It's just an automatic thing. And then you will score additional endgame points for villages you have captured. For each village you've captured, it's 1 victory point. For most factions, some factions score a little more. And then 5 victory points for each citadel you have captured. And basically, the player with the highest total wins. There are some tiebreakers if you're tied on points, but I'm not going to go into those. But that is essentially a game of Bloodstones. It seems like it's going to be a pretty fun game to play. Has a little bit of a war game feel with like the information on the tiles themselves. Seems like it's going to play fairly quickly as well. I would imagine 2 regroups do not take too terribly long. Maybe with 4 players, you're looking at maybe an hour and a half game, maybe. So I wouldn't expect it to take too terribly long. There might be a little bit of analysis paralysis at times, but I think people would probably play pretty fast and loose, I would imagine. Different factions to start with. They do recommend, if you're new to the game, don't play with this faction or leave this faction out of the game. I think I can't remember if it was the Necromancers or the Chaos people. They said, or the Chaos Horde, are the most complicated faction. They recommend you only play with that after you played the game several times. There are 6 different maps, so you can mix up the map variability. It does seem like it'll come down to the luck of the draw of your tiles, which may be a hindrance. And if you don't get lucky in your draws, you might not be able to do much from round to round until you get the tiles you want. You will start with units out on the board, so you do place your citadel, and then you have, I think it was 5 tiles worth of points to spend, essentially, so you can deploy your starting units. You start with a hand of, I think, 9. You draw 9 tiles to start with, and then you have 5 points of tiles to spend, to get those out on the board to start with. If you don't spend at least 3, so you don't get down to your 6 tile starting hand, you don't lose anything. You just start with more tiles than everybody else. That would be highly unlikely. You're going to probably want to spend all your points to deploy your units at the start of the game, like your most powerful units. Probably put all your free units out on the board. They do say it is possible to put all 9 of your units out on the board, like the first, before you even have the first round, when you're doing your setup. They do, there is strategies listed in the back of the rule book for how they, how, like, first player tips, like do this. One of those, again, was deploy your most powerful units to start with. And there are strategies for each. They do go into a little bit of strategy for each faction, like how you should play it or what you should be trying to strive for, because they are asymmetrical. They have fairly unique units. They all have, like, the skirmisher, like the bows, the shields, and the swords are common across all of them, and probably cavalry. But the other units are all unique, I believe. So there should be some high variability in how they play. They are also supposed to, I believe, play off of each other. So I believe there are recommended faction availability based on the number of players. So it is possible, for instance, if one faction to be in the game and then that faction's counterpart is not in the game, that faction could easily steamroll the competition. Not easily, but they're going to have an easier time of it because they don't have that antithesis to whatever their special power is. So I believe there is direction on how to sort of mitigate that to an extent, but it does seem like it's going to be a fun game to play. I am looking forward to playing this both multiplayer and single player. I'll probably go through the single player rules at some points when I start the campaign. There's a entire campaign of at least like 18 games, where you play through a campaign. But anyways, that was sort of a brief overview. Brief, I say, and it was a little over half an hour. An overview of the rules and the gameplay for Bloodstones. Really looking forward to getting this to the table. Thanks for watching.